what we'll do is we'll look at the purchasing side now. And what we're going to do is we'd like to pull in basically all the vendors' historical transactions. So we'll see all their transaction information. But if I look at that, you'll see that there are already a few, payables transaction SmartList out here. But the amounts basically are always positive. So regardless of whether it's an invoice or a payment or a credit memo, it's always showing a positive amount. And that's fine as long as you know that it's displaying it that way. But it can also be tricky if you are exporting this data into Excel and maybe analyzing the data further. You're trying to get maybe a balance or different totals within Excel. It can be helpful sometimes to have the payments or certain document types display as negative and then other ones as positive. So then you can just export that and then it all goes into the one column in Excel and you could quickly get a total off of that column instead of having to change it in Excel every time. So we'll go through that example next, and what we'll do is we're going to start with a new one here. So we're going to start with purchasing and just create new. And then we'll give our list a name again. So I'll name it Payables History. And what we'll do this time is we're going to pull directly from a purchasing table. I found that when working with calculations, like some of these you could actually pull from the view. So as an example, we have this payables transactions. So if I wanted to work off of that SmartList that's already there, I could open up views and I could use that as my source. But I found that when I do that, my calculations don't always work. So I found that if I'm going to be making calculations, especially in this case, I'm going to be using a case statement. I'm better off just pulling directly from the table rather than trying to start with one of the views. So that's just been my experience with the product. So I found it's easier to do it this way. So I'll go to tables and then expand purchasing. And what we're going to do is we're going to look for the table that has all of the history. So this one is actually called PM Paid Transaction History. And a lot of these you could kind of tell by looking at the name. A lot of this is master data. If you see master, it's basically just basic data about a vendor. Otherwise, these are all different transactional tables. So it looks like that's the one we want, PM Paid Transaction History. So I'll expand that. And then we'll add some fields. So we want our voucher number, vendor, our document type. We'll want our document date, our number, and document amount. And of course, there's several other fields that you'll see down here that get stored with this table that we could add. And we could even link to another table if we needed to, if there was something that wasn't on here. But in this example, we'll keep it simple and we just want the basic fields here. So I'm going to click execute just to make sure that I can see my data first. So I could see my different voucher numbers, my document type. Basically in the tables, there's a number that's assigned to each type. So 1 represents an invoice, and then 6, I think, is a credit memo, 9 is a payment, then there's a return. So basically each number in here represents a different document type. And then we have document amount, and you'll notice that right now it's showing as positive no matter what the document type is over here on the left. So we're going to create a new calculated field again, just like we did earlier. So we're going to create a new field for our doc amount. And I'll just call it that just so it's separate from the standard document amount field that they give you. This is also going to be currency. And what we could do here then is, so we could actually build out this, this function, and we're going to tell it basically that if it's an invoice, we want it to show as positive, and then the other document types we'd like to display as negative. So I'm going to start out as a function, and I'm going to go over here to text. And the other thing that I could do is I could actually type this in. So I could double click this. I like to type it in a lot, so I'll show you that too. I'll remove that. I like to personally go to constants and then go to text, and then I could just type it in because it does like spaces too. So if I do case and then space, I can insert that. And now I'm going to go over to my table here, and I'm going to pick the field that I'm analyzing, make sure I'm at the end of my expression here, and I'm going to pick document type. So case document type, so it's going to analyze that field. And I'll change this back to text here, and then I'm going to put a space and say when one, then, and then a space, and then go back to my tables here. And if it's an invoice, so if it's a 1 is my document type, then I just want to display my document amount. So I'll make sure I'm over here and then insert document amount. And then I need to tell it else, which is basically telling it what to do if it's not a type of 1. So I'll put a space here just to keep it so it looks good. And then I'm also going to need a parenthesis, so I'll put that in there too. So else would be basically my document amount again, except I want to multiply it by -1. So I'll go back to my constants here, and then I'll just type that in. So again, I could go to functions and use the arithmetic and everything, but I think it's easier just to type it times -1. And then I'll also end my parentheses here. I'll do a space, and then I need to tell it to end this function. So I'll insert the rest of that. So now I basically have this expression down here. The other thing you could do is if you know the expression, you have it somewhere, maybe you found the expression somewhere on the internet or someone gave it to you, you could actually copy it directly into this constant section here. There is a character limit though, so this one you'd probably have to do in sections, but you could probably copy like, copy a big chunk of this, and have it up here and just insert it directly. You don't have to go through and use all these tabs. So that's a good trick if you're working with a longer calculation. So in this example, we're keeping it kind of straightforward. So we're just working with 2 different document types. But if you wanted to actually build something in and tell it, when it's a document type 2, if you're using finance charges or debit memos, tell it what to do in every case, then you'd have to expand this formula and tell it basically every scenario. So I'm going to click save here, and it told me it's valid, so that's good. And then I'll highlight that again and click OK so that it actually adds my new field. And then if I scroll down, I should see that it added it. So I could click OK. And now you'll see we have our new field. So we could probably remove our old one since we don't need that anymore. But now we could see we have, so these are payments and credit memos are all showing as negative here. And then when we get down here, this particular line is an invoice. So you can see that this is showing as positive. So now if I wanted to export this to Excel, I could get a nice, quick, easy way to be able to just get a total, and I could even restrict this to a certain vendor, and I could export to Excel, and I could quickly get, their information related to that specific vendor as well.